Good evening, everyone. It is April 14, 2012, and tonight we have Facebook Home, we have iOS 7, we have the Saga 12 Saga, we have hammers building buildings, we have Skype beeping, and we have the worst sound quality ever. This is the iMore Show. Joining me tonight, the proprietor of Kicking Bear and one of the guiding minds behind Napkin app, Guy English. How are you, Guy?
Very good. You?
I am doing very well, thank you. Mostly because I'm joined by you and also joined by the director of Bajango, Mark Edwards. How are you, Mark?
I'm going very well. I've got a little bit of a cold, so apologies if I pronounce Facebook Home, Facebook Gnome, or something like that.
Well, that's the reason that I have you here, because Mark and I disagree about Facebook Home, and Guy's going to end up sucker punching one of us, I think, before this show is over. So let's just dive into Facebook Home. They announced it at an event a couple weeks ago. Phil Nickinson from Android Central was there, and pretty much as expected, it is somewhere between a super app and a launcher where you have Facebook Messenger, Facebook chat heads, and this thing called Facebook Home that replaces your lock screen and home screen with this beautifully designed, but I'm going to maintain highly fictionalized version of reality where you have gorgeous friends and gorgeous photography and the ability to flick those friends around like Angry Bird bubbles at your whim.
Yeah, but you got to admit, in terms of strategy, what a great move. This is really. I mean, this is, forget about standing on the shoulders of giants. This is standing on the shoulders of their competition. This is, if you see all the stuff as a game of chess, I think Facebook just possibly took out a bishop or a queen from Google.
All my friends are beautiful.
That's why Guy won't friend me. That's the only reason revealed on the show.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think it's a good move. I think I have a hard time figuring it out because there's nothing there for me. It looks really well implemented. I know a fair number of people that contributed to the design of it, who, typical style, they kept their mouth shut until it actually shipped. But I've always enjoyed the work, and I think it came out really quite well. I'm not sure about its utility, but I'm not sure if that's because I'm out of touch or if it's just not for me.
Are you a Facebook user?
No, well, I mean, I have an account, but I seldomly use it.
Yes, I'm pretty much the same as you. I might get a link or two via email or something, and I'm happy to log into Facebook. I don't mind, but
I mean, yeah, I basically have one so that people that don't know my email address or don't have my Twitter or anything can just send me a message.
Yeah, me too. My family that doesn't know me very well, and my extended family in other countries, we use it as a way to make sure all of us are still alive, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
I guess if you separate the Facebook Home and the software side from the business strategy, the actual software itself, and I haven't seen it in person yet. I haven't used an HTC first, but the software looks glorious. It looks amazing. There's some really great people, as you mentioned, Guy, great people working on this, and the design, the physics, everything just seems pretty on the money. Again, with that huge caveat, if you're a big Facebook user and you want Facebook to take over your lock screen and your launcher, then this seems like a really, really good thing.
So here's my question, though, to both of you, and I'm not a big Facebook user either. I believe that this is fantastic from Facebook's point of view. They're basically intermediating Google on their own platform. Google was kind of afraid that Microsoft and Apple would lock them out of the internet, so they made Android. And now instead of doing the same thing, Facebook is just using the openness that Google provided to gain massive market share with Android to kind of, I used the analogy before, facehugger it like an alien and inject its own DNA into it. So you have this great Facebook Home experience, but I'm not sure who it's for. I understand why it's good for Facebook, why it's strategic for Facebook. I don't understand what they're offering the user, because it turns the phone into this thing where you can like and you can chat, but that's not the entirety of the phone experience. And even by their own commercials, it looks very, and I use this word in the post, onanistic and sort of limiting.
What does onanistic mean?
Well, it means it's sort of
you got too smart for me for a second.
It's sort of masturbatory from a Facebook point of view. It's that they get to show off their platform, get you to like their content, and provide them with data. And it doesn't seem like you get a lot out of it.
Sure. I don't know if that's true. I know a fair amount of people who spend a lot of time on Facebook. They get giddy when people like whatever they post. They quip, or they treat Facebook like I think we treat Twitter.
Okay. You use a Twitter phone guy.
I would not use a Twitter phone, no. But Twitter's so limited, it's so directed that I don't think it's the same. I don't think you can have a Twitter phone.
No, I'm not sure you can have a Facebook phone either. That's why I keep asking you. Because their own commercials are really weird and off-putting. Like, they have half-naked people in airplane cabinets, and they have Zuckerberg trying to run a meeting. Zuckerberg is telling his own development staff what they're developing after they've developed it, and they are so bored that they're using the phone to not listen to their boss.
Yeah, but those are the commercials, right?
Sure.
All that means is that they didn't get Don Draper to figure out exactly what to do, basically, I agree with you that the commercials are kind of shit and they don't sell the product compellingly. I'm not so sure that there is an audience for this. One thing I'm hesitant about predicting, and so I think anybody that says that they can is hopefully speaking from experience, but probably not. If you say, well, the kids are going to eat this up, they're going to love this because they're always on Facebook, I think predicting what kids these days like is the typical trap that, people of our age do. I think it's incredibly wrong to try to guess what kids are going to like without them explicitly telling you that, yes, this is what I want.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark, because I'm going to go to you as user experience guy. So there is some people for whom the internet only exists as a Facebook conduit, and theoretically they would love this phone because they spend they're in the Apple Store using Facebook, they're at home using Facebook, they're everywhere using Facebook, and this puts Facebook everywhere. But back when Microsoft made this little quip, welcome to the people-centric experience, Facebook, we got there first. And they did a couple times. I remember when the Kin came out, Michael Gartenberg, Matthew Miller, they all gave the phones to their daughters to review because they figured that was the people that the phone was for. And it turned out no one bought them anyway. So is this really an experience, Mark, that you think will attach to an audience? Are we big enough to have vertically segmented phones like this?
Yeah, and also remember that Microsoft were first with tablets too. I don't know how well that worked out for them. So being first isn't necessarily the goal. It certainly shouldn't be. You kind of want to be biggest and best rather than first. But I kind of see this as a different strategy for Facebook. There's a lot of chatting clients. There's WhatsApp, there's Snapchat, there's lots of different things, and they are apps. So this is the next level above that, where Facebook have their tentacles deeper into the OS, and that lets them do things like the chat heads that sit above the level of the applications, which for Facebook is great because it means it doesn't matter where you are, you could be using a competitor's application and all of a sudden this thing will pop up that'll drag you back into the Facebook
Only on
experience.
the HTC first. HTC had to do custom stuff to make that work. If you just download it from Google Play, you don't get that.
Okay, sure. But you see that there is a Facebook Home Partners page where they're clearly trying to get other manufacturers to integrate deeply into the OS, and I see this as being a bit of a play because it seems fairly clear. I mean, maybe this is some big assumptions being made, but it seems fairly clear that carriers will probably become dumb pipes in the future because I don't think they can compete on the platform stage. And this is really just Facebook upping the ante, so it's not really about applications anymore, it's about platforms, and it's about VoIP and their messenger service. So I think so that's the Facebook side. I think from that point of view it's good in terms of strategy, but I think it's also good for Facebook users because it makes it so much easier to use their service. So who it's actually for, I don't know, because I've heard some younger kids, like early teens, suggest that they don't want to use Facebook because that's something their parents are using.
Their dad's social network.
Yeah, exactly. You don't. It's not cool to be on the network where your parents and my wife's aunt is on Facebook. So that's kind of.
I just always figure kids have some network we've never heard of.
Well, they probably will. I mean, maybe will.
Mark's wife's aunt is exactly why I never go on Facebook, by the way.
Exactly. That's why I don't. It's. I guess it's a different thing. It's more of Facebook seems to have become family and friends, whereas something like Twitter is or app.net is more interesting people or colleagues. I don't know. It's yeah.
All I know is that I'm not going to know it until it's too late. No. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a if there's some kind of groundswell among kids, I don't think I'll detect it until later. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't run those kind of circles.
Here's the thing, though. So Facebook is clearly quite popular, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down, provided they don't get blindsided by something new. And I guess that sort of happened with Instagram to some respects, and they
time.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess isn't this just an easier, better way to use Facebook, and there's really not much more to it?
Maybe because Facebook is a web-centric company and the world's increasingly mobile-centric, they're afraid that what happened to Friendster and MySpace will happen to them, and social will continue to be migratory, and they need to do everything they can to keep their audience from going on to someone who maybe understands apps better or understands the niche of the next generation better.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think it's likely that we'll see a lot of the aesthetics from Facebook Home making its way back to the Facebook.com, to the website.
Yeah.
In that, like a lot of users will go to Facebook.com, and that's what they will expect Facebook to be, and it will increasingly align with the experience of when you turn on one of these phones. Mm-hmm. And that'll make these devices feel a lot more natural and like a lot more. Well, this is my home on the internet. Do you remember those years when people used to just go to Google? Yes. Maybe it still happens like that. That was the homepage of the internet.
Remember movies? It would be AOL keyword movie, and then it was Google search movie, and now it's Facebook.com/movie.
Yeah. There was some awesome hammering going on.
Mark's wife's aunt.
Yeah.
So I think Facebook is, maybe it is now. I don't know. I don't keep track of these kind of stats, but it's either now or they hope to be where you go on the internet to start stuff. It's your homepage, basically. And I think if you can pick up a device and your homepage is what happens when you push the button on the device, I think there's a reasonably compelling argument there. That said, I have no idea what is the hip new thing. And, maybe Facebook's, maybe they've hit their peak and they're grasping at something to hopefully stick there for them.
Jade in the chat room is saying WhatsApp, and that's probably why Google and everyone wants to buy them.
Yeah.
This is so if you're a startup, it's possible. You can build your own chat client, and you could probably build it and get it right, so it has whatever features that are specific to the demographic you're targeting, or for you, maybe it's for your own personal use, because you're not being catered for by other chat clients. So I guess Snapchat is a good example of that, where it's a very, very specific use. I see this as Facebook taking it to the next level, and not every startup can build a launcher, a lock screen, and do the kind of deal with a company like HTC that's required. So this is, I see this as a move that is very difficult to replicate by others, by smaller companies. And I think
so we have the new BlackBerry system is launched, BlackBerry 10. We now have Facebook Home. Samsung was working on Bada before, and now they've switched and working on Tizen. We have all these Limo devices like Mozilla's OS and Ubuntu Mobile, and there's still Open WebOS out there. Is there room for a next big player, the way kind of Apple came and changed the rules on everyone before? Is there room right now for someone to do that again?
Okay, first, I think Mark is underselling his answer to the previous question. Not just any startup can come and do what Facebook did. Facebook spent a lot of time hiring some of the best designers out there, like, period. Putting together what they did is a huge effort, and I don't want to be. I don't want to sound like who's the classic guy that's like PC people aren't just going to walk into mobile.
Mulligan from Palm.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like that guy.
But you're saying services guys or social guys could walk in.
I don't want to sound as confident as that guy. But you know what? You don't put together something like Facebook Home without hiring a bunch of really smart people.
Eric Tang, who used to run Android at Google, Mike Mattis, who kind of kicked off the richly textured design phase at Delicious Monster, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah. I did a lot of work on the thing for Alcor, Our Choice.
Yeah, Push Pop Press.
And like a lot of the physics in that echo what's in Facebook Home. There's Brendan Walken. There's an insane number of really talented designers and coders that got picked up recently. You don't just walk into the mobile space. Basically.
You just don't do it.
Stuart, I'm on the record. You know what? You don't just do that. That takes a lot of talent
and a lot of will from the top of the company. I mean, like you have to, from the CEO on down, you have to decide that's the direction you want to go.
Yeah, I know that Zuckerberg has done the Steve Jobs walk with a bunch of these people. Yeah. What was your more relevant question?
Whether there's still room. It's not. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
I think between Windows Phone and BlackBerry, we're tapping out. I feel that Facebook Home is in a different category in that it takes over Google Android rather than being a really vying for third place. Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's kind of. I mean, Android is supposed to be like embedded Linux. It's supposed to be a platform to make platforms.
Well, that's what they say. I don't know if that's what they mean, but yeah.
So I guess that was another question, but I'll throw it out now. I have this rough idea in the back of my mind that the next person to fork Android would be Google, and they would make a Google Now or a Google Plus phone or a Google Plus Now phone that put that interface. So that would be what you get when you start up. That would be your home screen, your lock screen, and they would kind of do to Facebook what they were worried that they would kind of do to everyone else what they were worried that Microsoft would do and just lock them out of the phone.
I don't know if they need to do that because they already have partner agreements and you don't get the Google Experience apps anyway. So it seems pretty easy for Google just to make that part of the contract where you don't pre-install Facebook.
I agree. I don't see any reason for them to fork. It's like the default is Google Plus.
Yep. That's you want Maps. You want Maps. You don't have Facebook Home pre-installed. That's the deal. And I think that'll probably carry weight with a lot of the manufacturers. So obviously, Samsung wants to divorce themselves as much from Google as possible, and I'm not sure that's going to work well for them because I don't know if they're software guys as much as Google and Facebook are. And obviously, HTC is. Place their flag in the ground.
That's a polite way of putting this. They are typical appliance software guys, where they're used to writing codes for microwaves and VCRs and stuff like that. Like Sony's level software guys.
Yeah. So when it comes to services, clearly Google and Facebook are brilliant at services. And Facebook, I don't know how much downtime Facebook's had since they launched, whenever it was, but I can't imagine it's a whole lot of time. They're a really, really solid service. So that's... You've got to give them credit there. Can we back up just a second because this is something I actually don't know that much about the background. But obviously, Push Pop Press were purchased by Facebook for Mike Mattis and a whole lot of other talent, and they had a great product. And I believe there's some discussion between Apple and Push Pop Press regarding iBook's author. Is there a Steve Jobs quote where we're speaking to Mike to sort of saying, don't worry about it, this is ours now?
It's a service, not a product. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I need to try and find the reference. I'm going to search for it now. But I believe there was some discussion, basically, because the idea was Push Pop Press was going to be a publishing platform, and I think there were words between Apple and Push Pop Press basically saying, don't worry about it, you don't really have a business with this because we've got something else coming, which obviously ended up being iBook's author. All right,
I don't know.
There's arguably always room for third parties when they're done brilliantly well. So, I mean, like, if you really wanted to do that business, you could make it. You can pretty much do any business.
I think you're largely on track. I forget what's been said publicly.
I guess my motivation for the question is, and I'm not suggesting any of the push pop press guys are vengeful or spiteful in any way, but if this is a situation where they're kind of Sherlocked, that would be probably increased motivation to go and work for Facebook and to make something that kind of, in some ways, cuts off iOS a little bit. Possibly.
Well,
maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Let me spin that into
No.
Well, let me spin this into this question. So immediately people are like, "What? Obviously, you can't get Facebook Home on iOS. Apple does not allow the level of integration that Facebook would need to provide a home screen lock screen experience. You get what Apple has allowed Facebook, and Facebook has agreed to integrate. So, do we need every time like Facebook Home or something else comes out, we get this thing saying, how is Apple going to respond? Does Apple need to respond? What's Apple going to do? Is iOS 7 going to address this? So, Guy, do you think that Apple needs to start leaving the app-centric ideas that they've had, maybe going back to the Newton and look at a new people-centric or at least a new model for how home screens and lock screens work with people? Questions tonight. Softballs.
I think everybody should be doing that all the time. I don't think that you need to ship a product about it, but I think if you're not questioning your basic assumptions, you're eventually going to run into a wall. Do I think they needed to do it for iOS 7 or as a reaction to this Facebook Home thing? No, not at all. But I think if you're not sort of re-examining what your basic model is, then you're going to run out of, run that road eventually. You need to be ready to sort of make that leap. Which is why OS 10 isn't on the iPhone. They did something new. They based it on, honestly, it's like 70 to 80% of the same software stack. But they did something brand new.
It's the important 20% that's changed.
Right. Exactly.
It's the right 20% to change, yeah.
Right. And I think if you're not constantly looking at that, then you're probably in trouble. I think that's actually what nailed a bunch of the phone makers, is that they didn't really change anything up and they weren't really questioning what they could be doing. They just kept doing the same thing until Apple came and just, demolished them. So do they need to react to Facebook Home? No. Do they need to be thinking about a different way or a different way that people could look at their devices and want to interact with the devices other than an app-centric model? Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's an impending risk per se, but I think if you're not thinking about that kind of thing, you're doing yourself a disservice.
So I've heard unofficially that if you're expecting Springboard or the home screen or the icons to go in iOS 7, you'll be disappointed. But that if you're expecting sort of the Johnny Ive touch, it's more. What's the right way to put it? More elegant? No, not more elegant. More subdued interface. I don't know the right way to put it. I'm going to say it a little bit different. Some people say radically.
Reskinning UI kit is one thing. Reimagining what iOS is something totally different. I don't think that iOS even needs a real reimagining. Maybe you guys disagree with me.
No, I really think. I mean, the
Springboard is pretty good. The folders, shit gets complicated because there's way too much stuff going on. But the basic premise is it works as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed? Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And the thing is, apps open full screen anyway, so there's not really anything else that can change in that respect. So it's kind of, you just want a quick way to launch things and something takes over the entire device anyway. So there's definitely areas for improvement, but yeah, and I agree. The basic.
I mean, you can imagine weird shit like the way that the UI navigation controller, maybe that works totally differently, like the bars on the bottom or something. And the tab bar goes on the top. Like, you can imagine that they can re-implement the controls in some crazy way where everything just looks different.
You just popped into my head UI hamburger button and UI basement.
I'm gonna buy that guy a burger.
Kawano said he saw it somewhere. He would take credit for the basement, but he would not take credit for the hamburger. He said that was extant before he got involved.
All right. Okay.
So I'd buy half a hamburger.
But he tweeted that as Singleton. That's where a lot of people saw the term.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah.
I gotta go to Singleton one year.
It's a good show. You'll enjoy it. Great beverages.
I agree. But the thing is, a lot of the stuff like the nav bar and toolbar, tab bar positioning, a lot of that's based on stuff that really isn't going to change.
Yep.
And the reason why Android has the navigation in a different place, or tabs usually up the top, that's all based on soft keys, and there's good reasons for this. So I can see a reskinning happening, but I think the fundamentals of where the basic UI is probably going to stay the same.
So hooked me up with, Kevin actually from Crackberry hooked me up with a Z10, a BlackBerry Z10. There's a lot of swipe gestures on it. A lot of them feel really good. To switch apps, you swipe up from the bottom, which feels great. To get the settings in general, like help and stuff, you swipe up from the top, but the device is like a little too big for my hand at least. So that's a cumbersome gesture. I like it. I think it's a very well implemented device. I think they've put a lot of thought into it. I think the software stack is great. But I think UIKit, as it is now, and the iOS, really sort of just works.
Let that person in, Mark.
Sorry.
No, I love it. It's great. The way UIKit and iOS does it is, I don't want to say correct, because I'm not sure if you can be correct like this, but it is as close to the right thing to do as I think anybody sort of stumbled on.
It's
or
mainstream
just
intuitive.
discovered it. Yeah. And I do worry that maybe it's my familiarity sort of makes that feel like the baseline of what's correct. Mm-hmm. But just the way the hand works, there's a physicality to it that I think works really well that other systems haven't quite got yet, if that makes sense.
I agree. I like the fact that you can swipe up and right no matter where you are to get the messaging hub open in BlackBerry 10. Things like that save me a lot of time because like iOS is great. You can multitask to get out of somewhere. To get back to somewhere is really onerous. So if there's shortcuts that would help you move around to very common tasks, I think that would be nice. Yeah. But I agree with you mean about UIKit. I'm just wondering if we can start to get to that. And the last time I asked a question like this to Guy, he destroyed all my hopes and dreams for a holodeck. So I'm very careful about asking these questions. But I would still like the stuff to be a little smarter. Like I'd like the SMS notification to let me respond in the SMS. I'd like the alarm to let me rejigger the alarm in the alarm. I'd like to not have to move around the OS anymore than I have to. But I don't know if anyone is. I mean, Google is getting there a little bit with Now cards and actionable notifications, but I don't know that we're seeing that kind of stuff too much yet.
Go for it, Mark.
Yeah. Look, I agree. I think that kind of stuff would be great. And I guess that would take iOS away from a very app-centric way of doing things for Apple's own OS-based apps. So it feels, even if that's not technically correct, a lot of Apple's apps feel like they could be third-party apps. So I agree. I'd like to see things kind of a little bit more intertwined and different ways of doing things in a contextual manner. I'd also love to see pattern unlock on Android is really cool. There's just a whole lot of stuff like that would be nice, as well as gestures like the Z10 and I don't know. I see a lot of that stuff could be added on top of what we already have. So rather than, obviously, you can't just delete the navigation controller or even rework it completely because there's I don't know how many apps that rely on it. But Apple could certainly add new controllers that are more gesture based. That would be pretty cool, and that way developers could take advantage of them in the future, even if they don't right now.
I don't remember how I destroyed your dreams last time exactly with this.
You said holodecks were not possible given our current abilities in physics and all these things.
Well, a holodeck?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to that. Pretty sure I'm right about that one. Interactive notifications take a lot of work. Apps aren't currently set up to do that. It's not like you can just sort of retroactively add some functionality to them. It'll take a lot of work. It could come. I wouldn't expect it for iOS 7, probably not even for iOS 8, but that's a way out. I don't think you're wrong. I agree with you and Mark that is eventually someplace that would be great to go, because I'm not convinced that an app-centric model is the best one to have, even for the Mac.
Yeah.
I've actually argued this before, that for the Mac, I think that almost the Windows model of one window is conceptually one process works a lot better for some people.
I saw you yelled it for arguing that.
Yeah, no, I mean it. I keep meaning to write something up about it, but I do mean it. Like, if one window is one process, it's so much easier for people to understand. Like, if that window gets wedged and it's all screwed up and it's not drawn correctly, well, you kill it, you hit the close button, and you're done. I think there's an autonomicity.
Yep.
I don't even know if that's a word, but close enough. Roll with it. Between a visual delineation on the screen and a conceptual delineation as to what is actually happening on the computer. Which I think is
one relationship.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's valuable, and I think that's actually exactly what happens on the iPhone when you hit an app and it takes over the whole screen.
I definitely think aligning mental models with the way that the actual code works in some respects can have massive advantages, because that way, I guess, things are more expected.
I don't suggest bending the mental model to fit how the code works is good, but I think making it's when you come to determine the way that you interact with the machine that you try to figure, And in the old days of the Mac, it really was that. You'd have one window, and that would be it. You find you'd have only ever one app running. And by old days, I mean like 1984, 85 style, right?
Yeah.
Like, you'd have one app running, and if you quit it, everything would go away, and you would see it. These days, things get a little bit more complicated. I'm off in the weeds here. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's almost like a Jeff Hawkins answer where, you can't perfectly write on a Palm, but you can do that handwriting recognition. You can write more like the machine. So you can meet the machine halfway.
A little bit like that, but I don't even mean that. I mean that when considering how the machine should work, you should be considering what the user's mental model is.
Sure.
And I think one process per document, let's say, fits that model. And I think like something like Chrome, where there's one process per tab, fits that model pretty well. Mm-hmm. And it works. I think people like it. I think when like JavaScript or Flash gets wedged in the Chrome tab, and that little dialog box comes up saying like, "This page is fucked."
Yeah.
Can we say that? This page no longer is responding.
It's a technical term. Roll with it.
Right. It's a model that I think people understand. I think the iPhone got that in a lot of ways. That said, there's this notion of interacting directly with notifications inverts that a lot. It's almost like the open doc sort of system where there's code that runs. There's not documents per se, but there's things that you act upon, and there's code that can manage those things. It's more of a Newton model where there's like an object
and a
system behind the scenes. It's just doing stuff, right? And that is a drastically different system than the one we've got today, and drastically different than what the operating system is currently designed to support. So,
and I'd say that's why the iPad is so successful with non-traditional computer users, is that it's a very understandable, oriented model.
I totally agree with you. They didn't do the Newton thing, which is like, you know what, we're going to toss everything out and do something new. In a way that they did, in that, you know, they tossed out the keyboard and the mouse navigation, and they re-examined the way that touch could be an input, but they didn't throw out the basic process model, which is like, I'm going to hit, there's a springboard, and it's got a grid of icons. I'm going to touch one, and then it's going to launch an app, and then I'm going to use that app.
I'm going to press the home button, and then another app, and then the home button, and another app.
Yeah,
very easy.
They didn't. Like, if you look into what OpenDoc used to be in the day, or if you even think about how computers could possibly work, what the iPad does is not that revolutionary when you really think about it.
Well, I think that was one of the problems with the Facebook phone, is that it seemed like they were trying to be smart at the expense of being smart.
I like the idea of putting people first. I'm not sure if they've done it right, but I haven't tried it. So
see, sometimes I want people first. Sometimes I want to, like, if I want to take a photograph, I don't care who I'm taking the photograph of. If I want to make a call, then it's very important to me. And if I want to do a task, then neither apps nor phones are foremost in my mind, but the task is. And I liked WebOS because the cards and the stacks, did a good job of doing that. But it wasn't perfect, and I don't think going too far in either extreme is a perfect solution either.
Yeah. What do you think, Mark?
I guess based on your most frequent actions. I mean, if you're spending a lot of time on Facebook and most of the things you're doing are people focused, then I guess it's a great thing. If you're mostly task focused and you hide away in your garage or wherever and you just tinker away, then the people side of things won't be maybe as important. I do have a question for you, Guy. It seems like there is a very significant line in the sand that's been drawn by Apple with iOS, and that is, it doesn't seem like Apple are that keen on, for good reason, running third-party code when an app isn't running. And that's something, I think that's a big difference between Android and iOS, and probably other OSs and iOS. Do you think Apple, because all this stuff, the idea of responding to a message, maybe it's not, iMessage, it's something else, while you're not actually in the app, would mean running third-party code when the app's not running. If anything else, it seems like maybe that's the reason Apple wouldn't do it rather than other reasons.
I agree. I think that Apple will do everything it possibly can to make sure that no third-party code runs without it being explicitly within the context of a third party. So something like a share sheet where, as opposed to mail comes up, your sent Instapaper sheet comes up. Hi, Marco. I think that may be common, but stuff like code that runs and updates your icon on the springboard, I don't think they'd want to do that. I think if there was a way to maybe respond to messages, they would rather have it be that you set a bunch of parameters like, when this message comes in, display these kind of controls and accept this kind of input, and the system would do it, and then send you a very well formatted query, basically, to your app or to a section of your app that would run a processor. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying specific APIs for each case on a case-by-case basis rather than just, hey, you can do whatever you want.
I think that's more likely than them just letting you run third-party code inside the notification center, or inside Siri or inside X. I think they're more likely to take the approach that actually what we saw Panic do recently in their terrific what's it called, status board app. Where they have a very, very limited sort of, it's not even an API, but a very limited sort of way that you can interact and add widgets to your status board based on CSV files or HTML tables. Like it's very well defined. I think Apple's more likely to take that kind of approach where they don't support a system that can deal with everything. They support a system that can deal with like 70 to 80% of what's going to be common, and they do so in such a way that it's unlikely to cause any problems, and that they're in control of in terms of security stuff, or accepting the input and just not letting anything go wild.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that's their MO.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the best way forward in terms of what computers can possibly do, but I think that's what they will do, and I think it'll work out pretty well. Yeah.
I'm going to use that as a way to transition to the other topic I wanted to talk to you guys about, Apple's MO and doing what they will do. There was an interesting case with an issue of Saga 12, where a blog post went up from Image Comics and Brian K. Vaughan saying that Apple had banned or would not allow Saga 12 into the Comixology app on the App Store. And it sounded kind of fishy to me, and I didn't link to it because it didn't sound correct. And some time went on, and then Comixology put up a post saying, no, that's not true. They thought that it would be a problem, so they voluntarily or they deliberately didn't put it into the Comixology app, but then they later got clarification saying that, no, it's fine to do that. That post went up. The original article didn't get corrected, so if you find a link to it, you'll still think that Apple's being a jerk. But a new post went up kind of apologizing for that original post and clarifying what happened. And it was interesting to me because it sounded like basically everything failed. Apple, there is sort of a chilling effect in the App Store because Apple has in the past either rejected or removed applications. So some people aren't sure about content guidelines. So that led Comixology to overstep or to maybe make the wrong assumption. Then they failed to communicate that to Image and to Vaughan, so they made the wrong assumption. And then they failed to check with Comixology before publishing that article. And then a bunch of people in the news media picked up pitchforks and torches and ran at Apple very, very fast over all of it. And Guy, I know it's not exactly addressing that, but you put up a post about comics in general that kind of riffed on this. And is this a mess entirely of our own making?
Well, who's our own? I mean,
humans,
yes, it's definitely a human problem.
No dogs are involved in the creation of this problem.
The Martians are not dealing with this right now.
John Jones is clear.
I don't know. I think ultimately the responsibility lies with Comixology. I think that what they told the creators, Image and Brian K. Vaughan, was that, Apple won't accept this.
Yeah.
And what Image and Brian K. Vaughan understood, and Fiona, what's her name?
Oh, I forget.
The artist, and London? I'm being an asshole. I really should remember because the art's great. I think that what Image and the creators understood from this was that Apple won't accept this, as in we ran it by them and Apple saying no. And they wrote, they wrote pieces that were very much, I don't want to say accurate, but they wrote as if that was the truth. What they wrote was dead on.
Yes.
And that just wasn't the truth. And in fact, Brian K. Vaughan retracted it, and what he said during his retraction was also dead on. His initial piece was like, Apple won't let us do this. We're sorry, you can go buy it elsewhere.
Yeah.
We're disappointed that they won't let us do this because of these two tiny little pieces of art that they find offensive. And during his retraction, he said, you know what, we totally screwed up. It was Comixology that said this to us. Mm-hmm. And it had nothing to do with Apple in the first place. Both posts were really well written and very forthright.
He's a good writer.
You think?
Fiona Staples, I double-checked.
Fiona Staples, thank you. I kept, as soon as I hit Fiona, I kept wanting to say Apple, and I got into a brain nut. Yeah. Everything he wrote was dead on, given what I believe, firmly believe that his interpretation of the facts were at the time, or his understanding of the facts were at the time. I think Comixology screwed up. I think Comixology thought Apple wouldn't approve it, and so kind of weaned out and told him that.
Thought the wrong thing, they said the wrong thing.
I kind of feel that they put the blame on Apple and it had nothing to do with Apple. Gruber, when he linked to it, he didn't link to the original piece. He linked to the retraction.
Yeah.
As did you, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, I know you didn't run the original piece, but I was trying to remember what the original context was.
It didn't make sense to me because for Apple to go through every bit of consumables in every app on the App Store sounds like an impossible problem. Like, I don't know how they would even find it to reject it if they wanted to.
No, in theory, I think they can. I know they can, but in practice, they can't.
It seems to me like it'd be more of a YouTube reaction from Apple, where the issue would come out, someone would complain, and they'd retroactively, or they'd go back and reject it after.
Yeah, to me, the only reason I think we chatted about this. The only reason I could see Apple doing that is because previous issues of Saga had featured some sexuality.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, I think the first panel is people.
Yes.
It's a full-page spread of like people with TV heads having sex. And while they've got TV heads, they've still got boobs and everything else. So,
or if Vaughn had if if Comixology had gone to Apple and asked them if it was appropriate, and then they'd heard back no.
Yeah, it was either somebody complained about the issue, so something was playing out with Comixology. Like it was if there'd been some kind of communication. And the thing that I think particularly rankled was that this sort of character has a TV for a head, which is this is a very well written comic, and I feel stupid even just talking about it because the guy has a TV for a head. But he gets wounded in the neck, and he's kind of going crazy. And he's on his TV face are images of male homosexual pornography, and I think that I don't know. It appeared that this is a very mature comic. There's, like I said, there's a lot of sex. There's a lot of stuff going on. That it's not a superhero comic.
No.
And it seemed like it's like, wait a second, we've been following along all this time with a lot of really mature themes, and as soon as something gay comes up, you're going to ban it?
Yeah, it seemed like a double standard.
Oh, yeah. It was like a pitchforks to Frankenstein's monster kind of thing, where it's like, it's not the monster's fault. Like, just calm down, you know what I mean? Like, it really felt kind of bad. But it got sorted out, like a day? It seemed like a day.
I think it was a day or two at the most.
I really think Comixology screwed up. They kind of panicked, but eventually they told the creators, they told Image and they told Brian K. Vaughan that they could run the issue. I don't know if they spoke to Apple. I really have no idea. I did hear from friends at Apple after everything had been resolved. I heard that they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
They were like, nope, we didn't.
But they did take heat for it.
They took a lot of heat for it, and it's really hard working for the App Store reviewers. Like all that can ever happen is something negative.
Yeah, you get
nobody's like, "Hell, you did a great job improving that app." It's like, no,
way to go, good approval.
Really, yeah. So you can only be yelled at, and I really don't envy them in that position, especially for something like this, which is like that's not even their call.
Yeah,
it didn't even get to them. So. You asked initially, is there a chilling effect? Yes, there's a chilling effect because Apple won't allow porn apps on the store, and this had something that could be. Certainly, there was nothing pornographic about this, but it was. It
was like a 500px sort of a.
Screw the pixels. Yeah. It was vivid. It was visceral. There was something visceral going on.
Yeah.
And it was not porn, but you could see why this may not be something that flies in Middle America.
Yeah.
To use, I wish I had a better term. I'm sorry. You out there in Ohio, you're awesome. I'm really sorry. I'm sure you're awesome. But for lack of a better term, in a more conservative constituency.
Yeah.
Something is just kind of awful all around. I don't know. Mark, did you follow this at all?
Yeah, I did. I've only really skimmed bits and pieces, then yeah, look, I think I agree with everything you've said anyway. So I don't know how much I've got to add, except that, welcome to the future of computing. This is what happens when you've got curated app stores and easier installation, easier purchasing, easier in many, many ways. But there's just a huge burden on anyone who's running a platform with a curated app store, and it seems like the tendency is always going to be towards being conservative and politically correct, because I don't really want to upset anyone. So I think it's kind of, it's an unfortunate side effect of ease of use. And I personally I don't have any beef with Apple at all. I see the decisions they've made, and I think they've made a lot of right choices for themselves and for their users. But as a developer, it's pretty frustrating when you get rejections based on, again, obviously the Comixology situation is very different, but it's very frustrating when you get rejections based on very, very small, insignificant things that some of them may even be a point of opinion where, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way. So
and inconsistency, I think that's one of the hardest things, is that some things will get through and identical things will not get through, and then it just creates an inability for you to predict your own business.
And the rules change over time. As again, going back to Panic Status Board, they submitted an early version that was a test to see if because there was one point where if you consider this to be some kind of widget-based dashboard thing, there was a time when they weren't allowed. Now I don't know.
Still not allowed, as far as I know. If you have like a calculator and a web browser and a bunch of stuff together on a screen, you're still violating their single window.
Well, there you go. See, I mean, I don't know what makes.
Oh man, I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
Yes. See, I mean, the thing is, I love Panic, and I love Status Board as well, and I love the concept. But again, obviously, this is a situation where Apple have made a very, very clear stance in the past. I've got friends who have had apps being approved and then pulled down afterwards because of this. So it's
they're the App Store, not the App Store apps, but apps that sell apps in an app. Some have been removed and some haven't. And there was the Launch Center thing, David Barnard, where his Launch Center didn't get in, but almost identical apps did get in.
Yeah. And then this is only going to get worse. It's certainly not going to get better. And this is all part of the curated app store business, and anything that's even remotely on the fringe is potentially, and obviously the fringe moves too. So you might be safe one week, but next week you won't be, and it's really tough if you're basing an entire business on that stuff. And I guess from my point of view, the balance of power is very interesting, because I think Apple's stance is to what's the phrase? It's commoditize your compliments. So Apple love having lots of small developers doing great work, because it means, in terms of balance of power, Apple really kind of has all the cards there. So
there's no balance of power. There's somebody's got the power, and somebody's
a monopoly of power,
complementing their their platform.
Is that one of the Ice and Fire books, Monopoly of Power? I'm not sure.
a song of Monopoly and Power. No, I totally.
It's a bit like dealing with the the tax department, isn't it? It's like they'll say this is how it is, and you say, well, no, actually, they're like, no.
Yeah, it's the only government. It's the only department. The only department where you're guilty until proven innocent. In most, even in most countries.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that this happened to be a case where there are legitimate concerns, and they get a lot of play in the press. Appropriately so, I believe. Some cases are kind of whiny, and they don't really make a lot of sense, and the Apple's right. But generally, I think the idea that if Apple rejects you for something that a writer or a publication feels is silly, then it is the job of the press to sort of get behind, or at least tell a story, right?
Fit the state.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the entire purpose, right? Like, the purpose isn't to reprint press releases from any kind of company. It's to actually examine what's going on and tell the story. And if that hurts Apple because they made a dumb decision about some app, so be it. That's, the right thing to.
Yeah, watch the Watchers guy.
Exactly. That's exactly what should, no, but that's exactly what should be happening, right? And I think that this was a case where somebody left to what I honestly think happened is that Comixology got cold feet. They told their creators one thing. The creators went public more explicitly than I think Comixology would have anticipated them going, and the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And then Comixology backed off. Or at least came clean, I should say. I think Comixology may have thought that this wouldn't fly for some reason, or that maybe I think that if they shipped this Saga number 12 with like postage stamp male homosexual sex acts happening in like tiny space, that Apple might have pulled their app. And the revenue that app brings in for them, I mean, that's their app, that's their company revenue.
Yeah.
And it is the revenue for, Marvel, DC, Image, a whole bunch of other. There's a lot of money flowing through that app. And I think somebody might have got cold feet and said, we're not going to risk it for this. Because we could be out of business for a couple of months until we get this sorted out. And I think that is the chilling effect that's actually playing in here. It's not that we don't appreciate this, we don't appreciate this art or anything. It's more that we can't risk having our business taken down for a couple of months due to some sort of opaque review policy.
Yeah.
And I think probably when it hit the press and there was a lot of feedback, I'm going to imagine somebody called up Apple or Apple called them up.
Yeah.
408, by the way, is the area code.
Answer your phone.
Pick up the phone. Really, pick up the phone.
Saber in the chat room is reminding us that Jury at Singleton said that the relationship is animal husbandry.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I like that much. It's a good way of looking at it, but man, it's kind of
scary, terrifying way of looking.
God, I hate that Jury guy. You know what? Now that he's back at Apple, he can't say anything bad about me. So, man, I hate that guy.
He can go talk to the review team next time Napkin's up, though, guys.
Oh, God, I love Jury. I think there needs to. So many problems, so many difficulties with Apple would be better managed if you could talk to them. Mm-hmm. And, you can talk to individual employees reasonably easily, but you can't get an official opinion without, jumping through a lot of hoops. Yeah. And I think that works well for them. I think they think that works well for them as a net positive, right? I think more and more as they interact with exactly this kind of thing, I think that equation may change.
Yeah. Well, and Kevin Mitchell and I got to talk to RIM's director of developer relations, and they are, they got 50 plus evangelists all over the world, and they're being very open. And I think as a smaller platform, they have to do that kind of stuff. And Apple, because their history and their current dominance, both of those are factors that doesn't encourage that kind of openness or two-way communication as much.
Right. I think that's going to become an increasingly important factor.
We still don't know when DubDub is. Every other platform we know when I/O is, we know when Build is, we know when BlackBerry Live is. No idea when DubDub is.
Well, you don't.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I'm kidding. I don't know. I swear to God, do not email Mark. Just get in touch with Mark.
I have no idea. And I'm not even buying a ticket this year, so I don't even care. Oh, well, I do care because I'm going to buy a plane ticket, but...
Yeah, you're going to come to town, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I'm going to try and party instead of learn. It seems like a good approach. The weird thing with all this stuff is, so I agree, Guy, it's very difficult to talk to Apple unless you kind of know people, which I don't really.
Even knowing people doesn't help, because that's just
Yeah, you may know the wrong
yeah, that sucks, dude. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And obviously talking to Apple via the press is a really blunt object and not really a good way to continue the relationship for either the developer or Apple. You know,
you may get what you want, but you're not making any friends.
Exactly. So you're right. It does seem like a pretty bad situation. I don't know if, given the volume of developers and applications, I just don't know if there's an easy solution for anyone. I guess the easy solution is, as we've seen with BlackBerry, the easy solution is for other platforms to do really well. So, these platforms have to be more developer and consumer friendly, and establish these relationships rather than just sort of setting things down as the way they are.
I mean, we've spoken to a couple of, we spoke to Matt Drance and Jurowitz for Debug, and
Quano on Iterate.
Oh yeah, Quano too, right? I mean, that's a small team. The Evangelist team is small.
Yeah. And like half of them on now.
Yeah. We could probably have a roundtable with every single one of those people.
We'll definitely do that. Mark, I'm going to do the mother of all segues now because you just put Scala Preview on Google Play, which I'm guessing was a very different experience.
Yeah, we were live within like an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and beta testing. We you send people a link from Hockey App. They don't need to have their device listed on. I mean, I'm sure that the downside of all this stuff is probably increased piracy. But yeah, it was pretty easy. It was really, I mean, there's pros and cons, but yeah, no dramas at all.
Were you scared? Is it really there? This can't be this easy. I'm not sure if it's actually really there.
Yeah, you log into the Google Play dashboard and you get mostly real-time stats on everything, and it kind of works, and it's really nice. And it's pretty different. So, again, I love iOS, I love Apple's platforms, but I'm not so much of a fan that I'd suggest that there's no room for improvement.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to wind us down. And Guy, what's next for Napkin? You still working on that? You haven't put it on the shelf yet?
We don't talk about future product directions.
Are you still selling it?
Yeah, we're still selling it. We have a bunch of cool stuff coming. I don't know what we're up to now. 1.03, 4,
that, yeah,
3, something like that. We have a bunch of stuff in the pipeline that we expect to ship reasonably soon.
And if people want to find out more, they can go to age-and-distills.com.
Yes, yeah.
And your website?
KingBear.com, or I'm a GTE on Twitter, and what's the other one? App.net.
All the places.
All the places. Also, you know what? I just noticed that you credit Kicking Bear as 2 words all the time.
Oh, I suck.
No, you don't suck. I mean, I may as well be that. It's been like a year and a half you've been crediting me like that.
I'll fix that. I have a grep for that.
That just doesn't
I'm going to camel case it.
I don't care. My affectation is that it's one word with like the lowercase b.
Which, next time you look, it's going to be one word.
Yeah.
Mark?
Well, I mean, I write at that site like once every 6 months, so it's really not that important.
Maybe this will encourage you to do it more. You have a lot of smart stuff to say.
Every 6 months, yeah. Save it all up.
Mark, where can people find out? Well, first, what's new with Bajango? What's going on down there?
Yeah, we look. I'm like, God, we've got some stuff we're working. I tell you, yeah, construction of building a house. If you come to WWDC, ask me because I might have something to talk about there. But we've just got lots of updates to our apps, current range of apps right now. So lots of Scala Preview, Scala View updates, as you mentioned, Scala View for Android, which is kind of exciting to see what it's like on that side.
And you did it with the Shifty Jelly team, right?
Yeah. So we didn't actually do the development. I did the design, but they did the development, which is awesome. But Russell worked on Scala Preview anyway, so it wasn't completely unknown to him. So he worked on the Mac app and a little bit on the iOS app. So
nice.
Yeah, we're good friends.
And where can they find out more about you and about Bajango?
So Mark Edwards on Twitter. It's Mark with a C. Mark on app.net and bajango.com for all of our stuff.
Awesome. And you can find me at Rene Ritchie on Twitter or app.net. You can find me at iMore.com. And for all of our shows, you can go to mobilenations.com/shows. And I also want to encourage you to listen to Debug with Guy English and to iterate with Mark Edwards and Seth Clifford, because we have a lot of really fun people on those shows, and I enjoy them tremendously.
Oh, we're so lucky. Some of the people we've spoken to, man, that's crazy.
Are we gonna? You know what? I think this may be the last time I'm on the air with Mark before WWDC.
Okay. You want to announce something, Guy? Do you have anything?
I don't want to announce anything. No, it's your thing. But I mean, we may be hanging out at some point.
We might. Yeah. If you're at WW, we might have some fun stuff going on there.
Yeah.
With the three.
Hi, Jesse.
Absolutely.
Hi, Jesse. Nice. All right, that's it. Yeah, we'll no spoilers, but a good tease.
Right. Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
We can't announce anything until Apple announces. So please, for God's sakes, Apple.
Yeah, God, it's 24th.
24th.
I guess.
Okay. Of June or of December? Because that's really
no. That's when they're going to announce it.
Oh, you're going to announce the 24th. All right. Mark actually did a graph where you highlighted every announcement.
Yeah. Is that after the finance call? Is that the whole point? It's the whatever Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever after the finance call? Is that your theory?
Probably.
Seems to be the pattern. I don't know. I'm not going to take credit for this. I didn't do any of the logic. I just read my email from time to time.
All right. So, yeah, now you just have to figure out what
I really don't know. I'm totally just... I have no idea, but I think that's the date that people are predicting that it'll be announced.
I think a lot of people at Apple still don't know, so it's hard for
No, believe me. A lot of people, even if they're giving talks on stage, they don't know when it's going to be. They really don't.
They're walking around with PowerPoint decks just at the ready. No, not Power. Sorry, Keynote decks at the ready.
It'd be funny if they had to use PowerPoint.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I always have a blast with you guys, and we've got to do these mighty Mobile Nations team-ups more often.
Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot for the call.
Absolutely.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks a lot.